Hello, meet the Ford Ranger Wildtrak. This is actually new for 2016, it's been freshly updated. It is the Ranger pickup truck, but hold on a bit, the Wildtrak is actually the one targeted at people like you and me. It's the kind of vehicle that you might buy as an alternative to a crossover or an SUV. So it's still a pickup and it's still a commercial vehicle, but it's been civilized a little bit. So what is a Wildtrak? Well, it is basically the regular pickup with lots of mod cons, screens, comfortable suspension, and it's still got the same ability and the same payload as a regular pickup. It also has a 3.2 litre 5-cylinder diesel with a 6-speed auto. Now you may be thinking, oh, diesel, I don't want a diesel. Well, this diesel is actually really impressive. It's got 200 brake horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque. That's more than what you get in a 4.6 litre Land Cruiser. That's more than what you get in a 4.8 litre petrol. So it's got bags of grunt. And as you're going to find, this is a really surprising vehicle. I didn't really expect that much from it, but when you drive it and when you live with it for a few days, you start to think, you know what, Ford might be onto a winner with this one. Let's go check it out. Ranger is a bit of a global citizen these days. For a pickup, it's got an international pedigree. This one's now built in Thailand, and the car was actually designed in Australia. The same guys who do the Falcon and lots of other really cool Australian-only product. And you'll see when we get down to the driving, they made something quite special. So Wildtrak has, of course, the exclusive Pride orange color and this roll hoop across the top, which does nothing apart from look really cool. And of course the hoops over the top that allow you to tie things on top. It's pretty well spec'd, this car. It's got rear sensors as standard, reversing camera under the Ford badge, and this mountain top roll, which stops your luggage being stolen by miscreants. Of course, with the pickup, you've got loads of room. I mean, drop that down. Slide in a dirt bike, a quad bike, or a couple of dead bodies, whatever you feel like. And of course it has this nice bed liner, so effectively whatever you put in there won't scratch the raw metal surface. It's a pretty interesting truck. Let's see what it's like in the back seat. So getting into the Ranger is easy. There's a pretty generous side step, and once you get back in here, well, it's actually a comfortable place to be. I mean, I got plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom. Shazad might struggle a bit, but I think even he would be okay. It's very impressive for a pickup. And while we're at it, this doesn't really feel like the interior of a pickup, and it's got this Rexin wetsuit-like fabric and this ribbed edges on the base of the seat. The seats are comfortable, they're good, pretty supportive. I mean, obviously the squab's a bit short, so I wouldn't want to do long journeys in the back of this. But keep in mind, this is designed as a commercial vehicle. It's a very impressive place to be. What have you got for the back? Well, there are no rear seat vents, so that would be nice to have in the future for Ford. If you can find in your heart to give us a rear seat vent. But it does have a 12-volt socket and a laptop power supply down here. 230 volts or 150 watts, so that'll supply your MacBook. Of course, the usual armrest with 2 cup holders. Otherwise, not a lot else going on back here. There's of course usual seat pockets, and this, I mean, there's a nice detailing here, because you think about it, this looks like a metal door handle. It's actually really nicely thought out to put that, because that could just be a piece of plastic, but that just lifts the ambience that a little bit more. I think it's time we took this thing for a drive. Okay, so here we are in the Ford Ranger, and this is actually a really interesting pickup interior. Let's look at some of the things they updated for 2016. If you look at the cluster, it used to be a standard double binnacle setup, RPM and speed. Now it's got a single one, which obviously has a central speedometer, and the rev counter is actually on the left. We've got twin digital screens flanking. Let me start it up and you'll see. Can you imagine a pickup having twin digital screens? That of course has all the usual stuff, RPM, you can go through that and get any amount of information you like, really. It's a crazy amount of options, as Ford now does with their cars. Trip computer, fuel economy, all the rest. It's very impressive. By the way, I've started up and it's a diesel. It's got a bit of clatter at startup, but for most people, they'll be pretty okay with it. How am I controlling this? Oh, the steering wheel actually has 2 4-way dials and a ton of buttons. It's almost too many buttons, but just enough that it doesn't get annoying. So you've got 6 buttons for speed control. That's cruise control, there's a limiter, there's resume, cancel, and then speed up and speed down. You think that could probably simplify to about 4 buttons? Ford. Volume up and down, voice commands, and actually this sync system allows you to say things like set temperature at 34 degrees, and it'll do that. Of course, pick up and cancel for the telephone system. speaking of sync, this has a sync system now. If you can look at it, that's my phone, that's entertainment with the radio and so on. And of course, you've got your home button here and telephone. Okay, that's my telephone, don't ask questions. Climate control, no pickup. It's got dual zone climate control, which works pretty well. It has been tuned for this market. Now, this is where I'd see navigation normally, but this car doesn't have navigation for this market. Center console, what's happening here? It's kind of bare, blank plastic, but actually it's pretty good. It's redundant features. So you've got climate control buttons, volume, big volume buttons, tune switches and so on. And down here, the most important thing, double USBs, line in, SD card slot, and twin 12-volt sockets. So effectively, you could have a ton of USBs in this car. Not a lot of terrain response options. People used to complicate four-wheel drive systems. Look away now. 6-speed auto, you know, slap it over to the left to get sport shift, which, by the way, is actually done the right way. So pull back to change up a gear, push forward to go down a gear. So almost a racing setup, and it's pretty responsive for the 6-speed auto. And down here, of course, you've got the speeds for the 2-speed transfer case. So 2-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low. And these actually change over quite fast. You do have to be stopped or neutral to go to low range. You can go from 2 to high at speeds of about 40 to 50. I wouldn't go to, generally it's a good practice to stop and do it. What else have we got here? Cup holders, a good armrest, actually very well placed, space to keep your sunglasses and so on. Big box down here for your odds and ends, and probably more USBs for all I know. I do like this textile texture here with this diamond quilt and the shiny silver plastic, and of course the contrast stitching on the dashboard. All of this serve to lift the ambience. Anything else I'm missing? No, it's actually pretty well equipped. You've got automatic headlights, you've got automatic wipers, and folding mirrors, lucky seats, all of that. I think for the price, which is 120,000 dirhams, it's pretty well equipped. Now let's put it on the road and see how it does. So we're off and away in the Ford Ranger, and some things to come to mind almost immediately. It has a very good seating position. You get in the car, for a taller person like myself, it's actually a really comfortable place to be. Everything falls to hand, the controls. Somebody's really thought about the ergonomics of this. So the more you're comfortable with the vehicle, the more you feel comfortable driving it. But actually driving this doesn't feel like a pickup. It feels like a crossover. It just feels like a normal car. The 6-speed auto is pretty good. The diesel clatters a lot at startup, but when you're underway, you can't tell any difference. It's got a ton of torque. It does feel a bit agricultural in terms of its noise and refinement, so you can never get away from being a diesel. You just can't. But on the plus side, you got a ton of torque, so it's just effortlessly cruises up to 80. You'd think with all of that the fuel economy meant that the car would actually be really good on diesel. And no, it's not. It's horrible on diesel. It drinks diesel. Maybe it was the enthusiastic way of driving. I mean, this car will cruise 120, 140 even all day long pretty well. Noise, vibration, harshness isn't there. But you tend to drive it a bit faster and the diesel disappears. Steering's very nice. I actually can't work out if it's electric or hydraulic because it's really well weighted. There's some decent feedback. It loads up well through the corners. The chassis is very impressive. You're talking about a pickup that feels very planted. I think it's got really soft springs so the ride doesn't beat you up, but then when you hammer on the brakes, the nose doesn't dip, the car doesn't porpoise around. So actually, you know, it's pretty well balanced. And you find that in the corners as well. You chuck it through the corners and the car feels really nimble, feels really pointy, dare I say it. It's a car that you can get into, instantly get comfortable, and instantly chuck it about. The steering as well, for a big car, remember this is pretty close to an old F-150, but turns well, hauls fanny. I suppose the one demerit I have is that other markets get a standard electronic stability control system or traction control system, and we don't seem to have it. All we have is ABS. And I think Ford, honestly, even commercial vehicle passengers or people who buy this car, we feel happier if they had some sort of stability control system as standard. I don't think that should be optional. I think that's a big black mark, and that the next revision of this car should have that. So what's the range like to drive? It's actually pretty inoffensive. and it's one of those cars that just gets out of your way. So a 3.2 liter turbo diesel. Will your friends make fun of you for driving a diesel? Potentially, but then they don't have a car that can go anywhere and do almost anything. When I say anywhere, I mean I've taken this into the desert, and it's pretty effective actually. The approach angles, I think it's about 29 degrees in the back and a bit more 29 degrees at the front and a bit more at the back. The breakover angle isn't great. It's got 230 millimeters of ground clearance, which is a fair bit, but it's a big old long oval car, so you have to be careful. But it's actually will beaches and that sort of thing, no issue. But if we're talking about serious desert, this car will do it. I think if you lift it, as I would like to do, it'd actually go anywhere. But even as it stands, this is a very, very capable vehicle. And you feel the sense that this car was engineered to do a lot more than it needs to be. I mean, this is a lifestyle vehicle, but it can go off-road, it can do anything. It can carry a ton in the back, and a dirt bike and so on. I mean, I'm driving on the road right here, and I'm thinking, maybe I'd like to go off-road. Let's see what happens. Drive through sand, and then, he goes into the sand. Into the sand, no issues. This is deep sand, and the diesel just pulls along. I'm on road pressures. I haven't even deflated it. It's fine. This is a Ranger for you. Goes off-road. No issues. Big points about going off-road, right? Most cars have pretty soft suspension. When you go off-road, the problem is it just bounces around all over the place. Because this car is so long, wheelbase-wise, it doesn't struggle in the sand. It actually is really poised and planted. I'm having to concentrate a bit because I don't want to get it stuck in the sand while I'm talking to you. That would be embarrassing. But you know, this car has so much torque. 350 foot-pounds of torque. So much torque that you never ever think it's going to get stuck. I mean, I'm driving around on road pressures. You never think it's going to get stuck. Never going to happen. Whereas there are lots of cars we've driven that don't have fancy badges and really have off-road systems that aren't designed to go off-road. But this car feels like it really is designed to go off-road. It'll take you anywhere, go anywhere, do anything. Don't even need low range, to be honest. This was just cruising up and down. It's doing 2,000, 3,000 RPM in the sand, and it is just making mincemeat. Granted, I don't think it's designed to really do hardcore dune bashing, but most people, I think they'll be pretty satisfied with the Ranger. So, does it get a seal of excellence? I think 120,000 dirhams. It'll be a left field choice, and a lot of people are going to go, okay, I don't want to be in a pickup. But if you're the kind of person that likes pickups, and I'm one of them, I think this is one of the best buys in the segment. Is it better than a Hilux? Yeah, any day of the week. The Hilux is a commercial vehicle. The Mitsubishi L200, commercial vehicle. But the Ranger isn't. This is actually the kind of car that you might want to buy for yourself and drive around every day. Because it comes in orange. And who doesn't love a car that comes in orange? Thanks for watching. I'm Imtishan. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and all the rest. See you soon.